I'd like to open the September 9th Conservation Commission meeting at 7:30. And I'd like to approve the minutes. Anybody get any omissions or corrections that they would like to?
I thought they looked great. I know Rosanna.
Yeah.
I was in a
Do we wait until
meeting,
she
so-
comes?
Let's give her a few minutes and then we'll.
Okay. We can go down to 4 Field Lane owner.
Yep.
Come on up. They've provided a few plans that were in that packet there, so welcome. I'm not sure what you
Do you have Matt's flyer?
do your flyer.
I mean, there's a stack in here, right?
I think so.
Go forward with that.
Full house.
Oops. Anna, right there.
Take my coat off.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome.
Got a handy dandy flyer for you.
Yeah. There's just some background information about the Wetlands Protection Act and the local bylaws and the protection of resources or protection of wetlands and water bodies is the reason you have to come and talk to us basically.
Sure, okay, yep.
So that's kind of the background, but so the Wetlands Protection Act and the Littleton bylaws provide for buffer zones from the wetlands, and so looks like, is the green the buffer? That's definitely wetlands. That might be the wetland boundary. Oh, there's the, oh yeah, there you go, 50 foot.
Right.
So there's the wetland.
Right, yeah, that's the wetland.
Yeah, so the 50-foot buffer zone extends almost to the back of your house and your deck. So Littleton has a 50-foot no disturb zone. So what exists now can exist. If you are looking to make changes, you would need to come see us. The best course of action is to call Amy and ask questions. But in a nutshell, if you're going to do anything within the 100-foot buffer, which is essentially your whole property, you may need a permit for the Wetlands Protection Act and the Littleton bylaws. And so we like to make people aware of it.
Sure, okay.
We've had instances where folks weren't aware and then made changes to their property and then had to undo it or spend money on engineers and, just things you don't want to do. So we...
Sure, okay.
And that includes structures as well. So if you want to put in a shed or different fencing, things like that. So walk us through a little bit about your mowing, or if that's lawn now. So things like grass clippings, you don't want to just throw them over.
Sure, okay.
You want to make sure that they're disposed of properly as well. That
We
flyer
can mulch
is-
them in though, right? So you could just mow without bagging it? Bagging and dumping your grass, could just mow them and let it go onto your lawn?
Sure, okay.
And then you don't have fertilizer.
Oh, definitely, you're right, yeah. Most probably, there won't be any mosquitoes on the backside.
Yeah.
That's what a little worried when we moved in, so.
Yep. Any questions that you have of the commission?
So when you're talking about the 50 feet area, so just in our backyard,
Yep.
is it okay? So this is the deck.
Correct.
So
Yep.
if we want to do a vegetable garden or anything, we can still do it.
I'll let you, who wants to comment on that?
I would think that if it's not making impervious, building impervious, or not involving, well, if you put in a raised bed, wouldn't that be a de minimis?
That's, yeah.
I would think so, because the water
And
will
it's-
still go through, it's not
And
an
if it's
impervious
lawn
surface.
area anyways,
Right.
changing lawn into a vegetable garden.
Yeah.
So that should be
That's
okay.
all right.
Yeah, that's the only.
But we do have a restriction also in use of organic pesticides and herbicides. If you apply them, then they have to be organic certified, and also your fertilizer has to be the more long-term fertilizer, not
Slow
instant
release.
dissolving. Slow release.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is if you have, so going back to like the lawn clippings, they decay and they put nutrients into the wetlands, and the fertilizers also put nutrients in the wetlands, so you'll get algae and, so it will also be gross in addition to just not being good for the environment.
Right.
It won't be pleasant to live around in addition to, being an issue for the environment. So.
But as you have questions that appear, just go ahead and give us a buzz.
Oh, definitely, you're right, yeah.
Yeah, Amy's a great resource.
You're right, yeah, she's good,
Really
responding in all the questions,
Yeah.
whatever we have.
That's
so,
good. Well, we welcome
Good
you
to
to
know.
the area. If you don't have any questions, we do appreciate you coming in. We just really want everyone to understand
Okay.
where your buffer zone. That's a great
So this
plot
is
plan that you have there.
Right.
Just kind of use that as your guide.
This is the 100 feet.
Yeah, that's a
Yep.
good view though.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good view, right.
Good. Okay.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you
Yep.
very much.
Thanks, yep.
Where is 4? Number 4?
Have a good night.
So, good night, see you
Just
guys.
to the left.
Bye.
Bye.
Going in? Must be like right, going in the left or right?
Left.
Left?
13 Edward Drive, Barbara.
Yeah, the left is the
Left.
Those are in the notes. Jill, can you
On the
just see
first
the
house.
notes on the Barbara?
Cutting
Edward
the
Drive?
conservation land, cutting trees.
Yep. So 13 Edward Drive, Barbara Beersdorf. Tree cutting on conservation land. This is off Edwards Drive, but not the house that was dumping landscape debris on Conscom land. That has been cleaned up. It's just a discussion if you want to allow her to cut trees on Conscom property. Trees might be in the 100-foot buffer. But
So
are
I
more
think
than
where they're
50
not
feet.
here, we'll just kind of
Yeah.
move on, see if they
Okay.
come in. Let's just skip
Okay.
over it.
Request for an extension permit, Fort Pond Aqua Vegetation Management.
There were emails that
204.
went around through
Yeah.
that.
822.
Amy had sent emails. I think they're waiting for the next meeting because there was a fee that was
It
due.
just says in case they show up, she wants to be aware of it.
Yeah. I think it got postponed to the next, in the
Okay.
last email I read.
Any other updates or administrative actions to know of?
Not that I was informed
That's a
of.
good thing.
Sounds like they
So
don't
we
expire.
still got about 7 or 8 minutes.
You already did the minutes.
Yeah, we gotta go back to the minutes. We were waiting for you.
We're waiting for you.
Gosh, how nice of you.
So the question still holds. Do you have any edits?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just had one, otherwise it was very minor things. Yes, the public meeting request for determination of applicability is 17 Lakeshore Drive. One thing that was pointed out during the meeting that isn't in here is that he wasn't expanding the footprint. That was one reason why we allowed a negative determination of applicability, is because it was just, it's building up, not out. That was about it.
Got a tear down?
Add that. Yes.
Oh, actually, I have one other minor thing in that same paragraph. So it says Mr. Smarka recused himself as he serves as a Littleton Conservation Trust trustee. I'm not a trustee, but an associate trustee, so I don't vote or do anything like that, but I'll write it in.
Yeah, put it up there.
And that's it.
Anybody else? Not, can I have a motion to accept the minutes as,
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, we still got 5 minutes.
Or we could welcome Sarah back.
Yes.
It's nice to have you back, Sarah.
Nice to
How'd your
catch up.
summer go?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah, nice to catch up.
No major catastrophes.
It's Carl. So the last one has postponed 8:45.
Yeah.
Oh.
Has anybody been around any of the conservation land or anything?
Of course.
Oh, did you see they're working on the parking lot?
Yeah, I
I
saw
saw it,
highway
yeah.
out there this morning.
They were full at it. Yeah.
What was, they wouldn't know the turnaround time?
I don't, but I can't imagine it.
Wouldn't take very long.
Yeah.
Because they're not leveling.
No, they're just putting crushed, reclaimed asphalt
And they're doing little,
berms.
yeah, little berms. That's about it.
I just saw a couple trucks and like stakes out with levels.
Any signage gone up down there yet?
Yeah, but we'll get some up as soon as everything's
And the
squared away.
kiosk is supposed to be going in, right?
Yep.
Did they finish the trail?
The boardwalk, not yet. It's
I
getting
think
there,
the
though.
main wetland was finished. I still haven't, I've been meaning to get down there. Like the boardwalk across the main part is done, but then there's 2 smaller ones that still need to be completed. I know the high water in the spring was hampering efforts.
Well, Dustin took nice pictures of raccoons
Oh.
eating natural food
Saw that, yeah.
at the lake. So
Yeah.
They eat the mussels because we kept hearing them crunching up.
Yeah.
So they were like digging and
Yeah.
eating the mussels.
Better than garbage.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They love chocolate.
Your chicken, yeah. Something came and got me. Oh, really?
A raccoon
Really?
ate all the chocolate.
You're kidding.
Oh,
That's so funny.
jeez.
You sure it wasn't just a
Caffeinated
kid who said it was
raccoons.
My son said, put flour up there and see what kind of a footprint you get.
Oh, that's
We got
smart.
raccoon footprints.
Oh, you mean it was repeated? He like came over and over again and ate your chocolate?
We had to better feed the cat.
Does he like milk chocolate or dark?
We mostly had dark
Dark?
We had something just snag one, which was totally during the night because we forgot to close them off, which was amazing. That they didn't kill all of them. No, that they didn't kill all. They just snagged one chicken and took it. Now we
Oh,
have a
what
rooster.
snagged the chicken?
Something small-ish. Snagged one chicken.
Oh.
So maybe a possum? Because I think other, like fishers
Or
would just
skunks.
kill everybody. Oh, skunks. We
You haven't got a weasel up there, have
definitely
you?
have skunks around.
I've heard
Skunks
very-
actually slept with ours, they didn't bother.
Skunks do.
I had a
Really? Ours just
possum
came
slept
right
in
in.
the egg box.
Yeah, that's
overnight.
where we found a
I
skunk.
had a
A skunk
weasel
one
in
day. It
the
wasn't bothered.
chicken house and
Are you guys
killed,
hearing like
Yeah,
15
past
was-
Yes, they go.
3 weeks,
Yeah,
like a
they
very
killed all
strange sound in the
5
woods,
of
like
ours.
a,
Yeah,
like a,
fireworks.
like.
Been hearing those fireworks?
No, have you heard it in our neighborhood? It's like,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
then another 10 seconds.
Is it an
Do you know
owl?
what it is?
Screech owl?
Is it an
I
owl?
don't think it is.
I would
I don't
think it
think
would be,
it's a
unless it's an
screech
eagle.
owl. What's a screech owl
It could
sound?
be an eagle. Eagles are similar.
But it's at like 1 a.m.
Yeah, it's usually an owl. That's a
Yeah,
good time
that's
for
what I was
them.
thinking.
Yeah.
Got any bears down there yet?
That's the guess.
No, I have not seen the bear.
We got a bear
Screech
across
owl
Spruce
sound.
Street.
There
He
you
went
go.
up in our neighborhood.
It is it. Do it.
Huh?
You must have a, wait, yeah, you're fishing wildlife. You
Yeah?
should-
You do.
Seen
I
headed
do
for the
not have,
camping
no.
area.
Why don't you?
Because
You're asking me.
I'm a transportation coordinator. I don't deal with wildlife. I do a fish passage.
So I went through Cooper Farm today to kind of look at the area in question that's being mowed. So I'm going to ask Amy to put it on as a discussion item for the next meeting. I can print off some pictures and we'll have some discussion on that.
And I've heard that the Ag Commission is involved a little bit, but they're,
Sounds like
the
a-
Park and Rec wants to
That's a street.
swap
Oh, sorry.
ag land down there for Park and Rec something.
Where?
Coop property.
Oh, okay. I guess that's a discussion too.
There is actually going to be a site walk at the Ag
No, none of them.
this Wednesday or Thursday morning
Yeah.
as well, so.
Oh,
It might
okay.
not be a bird.
Do you know any more about
Can't do
it?
Which
it.
property, Andrew?
The Cooper property.
Yeah,
I
but
feel
do you
like.
know which parcel or where?
I think
I know
they're
they're
back.
around.
Well, the whole property, all the
Fishing
fields
on it.
in question, I
I
believe.
played fishing
That's on
lodges
Wednesday.
in it.
Can we count this
About
as
the mowing?
7:45?
Doesn't
The
sound-
mowing parcels in general and.
We can't open a hearing until it's.
Boys are playing with it.
Okay.
What's wrong with it? Have you heard it?
Gonna open the 7:45 hearing, public hearing, notice of intent, 24 Cricket Lane, U46-8, Mass DEP file number 2044-895, construction of a new septic system, well, deck, and pagoda.
Oh, invoices in the blue folder.
We seen this one before, or is this a different one?
We were here a couple meetings ago.
Yep.
We were asked to come back. Jim Greffy at the time, Board of Health agent, hadn't reviewed this. He sent me an email late Thursday afternoon last week, so I rushed around to get this done. Added your comments in. Basically, we double erosion control down around where that well is. And then the other issue was they wanted some more information on the well itself, which I think I forwarded this email to Amy.
Yeah, she shared that with the commissioners.
Okay, so basically what's going to happen is when he gets this area staked, he's going to come down here. We'll have a machine dig a trench. I didn't show the trench, but that's whether he, digs it this way or that way or whatever. We'll have it in there, but it'll be surrounded by the hay bales or the erosion control, and that is to capture any of the siltation that comes out. Basically, you're looking at like 5-gallon buckets of silt or material that will come out of that will be captured, and all the water will be used again and again. It's the same scenario that the neighbor did a year ago.
This is a hand-driven one or something?
Yeah, it's a pressurized water that they shoot down and drive it in. The only addition to this plan that wasn't on the plan before is the installation of a 40 mil poly barrier in this location here. I've just supplied 2 copies to the commission so you'd have the most updated plans. And that came through from a comment from Jim Gareffi, so. But other than that, everything has stayed the same.
Board of Health approval?
It does now, that's why
You
he's
didn't
back.
get the Board of Health approval today?
Well, we haven't gotten it yet, but that's the next step is once we get through here, I just made the corrections or additions that Jim wanted. I emailed their secretary today to get on the next agenda because I do have to notify the abutters again for that hearing. So it will be within 2 to 3 weeks before we get
You're
to that.
confident that you're not going to have any changes, because once you close
No.
this,
Right.
you wouldn't be able to.
You have to
You
refile
have to
again.
refile the open.
Correct.
And that's
So
where
we can keep
that's
it
where we were a
open.
couple
So-
weeks
we
ago.
kept it open.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna suggest that, is let's keep it open until we get that, just in case, but he only had like 4 or 5 minor things. This one being the bigger of them.
Right.
The rest of them were some additions to some variances or whatnot, and that, other than that, it wasn't a major list of things that scared the bejesus out of me, so.
We meet again in 2 weeks, so it would be.
So if that's all right, let's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think we landed on, a few weeks back was, we had the question about the well drilling,
Yep.
so we appreciate the information. It looks like if you can manage it with 5-gallon buckets, it's a small volume of water.
Correct.
To develop the well. So I think that satisfies the outstanding question that I know I had regarding the well. Everything else, we went through the time before, and I think it sounds like we're in the same spot we landed on before, which was if Jim has changes for you, then or Board of Health.
Yep. But again, his list was very small.
Yep.
This was the only major addition to it.
Okay.
The others were a couple of variances to their well rigs that I overlooked, and a couple of elevations in the pump chamber, and that was about it. So
And do you have a plan to submit to the file, an updated plan?
I just gave her 2 copies.
Okay.
Yep.
So we will go ahead and extend you, and Amy will be in touch with the time for the next meeting.
Okay, so if everything goes out right with them, do one of us have to show up the next hearing, or is it just?
Unless there are changes, I
Right.
feel like if there are no changes.
Say there's no changes, everything gets approved at the Board of Health.
Right.
Yeah, if there are no changes, then
Great.
I'm definitely comfortable.
Okay.
Comfortable last time.
You're all set.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Too efficient again.
Too efficient for our own good, yeah.
Any other
Oh,
idle chat?
Do we have, is there anything else that
Illinois,
needs?
we can
Talk more about the bird.
Fox, it was late at night, I've heard it.
Yeah, it's late at night, it's like 10
And
o'clock.
one will call and the other one will respond somewhere else.
Wait, have you heard the What Does the Fox Say song?
No,
No, I'm not kidding.
Oh.
It's, it's
The coyotes
It's
have
by
been
a
singing around the
Swedish
farm, and they sound like a siren.
Google it, your son will love
it
it.
doesn't
It's
coyote.
hilarious.
It's definitely the kids, yes.
Do you think it's a-
Yeah, you've heard?
Oh,
Matt, do you think it's a bird or a mammal?
No.
Huh?
I thought I heard it up, like up in a.
I thought I heard it up too,
Yeah.
but it could be, someone said it, maybe a
Do you wanna
fisher,
make-
but I
do you wanna
played a
make sure-
fishing
no,
noise.
No, there was one
Nothing
close to
will
my
call back
house
to
too.
Fisher.
Nope.
And I don't, I'm not near the woods, so
Yeah.
if, I would have thought it was avian, but
Yeah.
Are any of you guys here for Edward Drive or Fort Pond Aquatic Management? No. Okay.
And have you heard all those explosions?
10 minutes till you.
All those fireworks?
Devon's is they're doing drills right now.
Yeah.
Someone like is shooting off fireworks for no reason.
It's not just.
That happens all summer,
Go ahead.
I feel like.
That isn't over to,
I have a neighbor who
Neshoba, is it?
No, it's just near the neighborhood. I mean, we're near Neshoba,
Okay, I
but
was
it's
gonna say
definitely
that's-
in like the neighborhood area. So I'm
I
like,
thought it was being more quiet when I shot them off.
it's always right when you start getting the kid to bed, you know?
Yeah.
Really annoying.
Are you sure it's not the quarry?
Yeah.
It's, I would hear the quarry.
They do that at night?
The
Yeah,
quarry.
I didn't know you could
They live near
blast
the
it.
quarry.
You can't
They don't blast at night. They blast during the day.
12
It
o'clock.
shakes.
12
Yeah.
o'clock.
Yeah. Shakes the house.
You can hear it over at the farm. Yep.
Every day.
No, Thursdays and Fridays mostly, I've noticed. Although I think Jim's home more than I am. I think I'm around
Oh, they've been doing more aerial spraying of mosquito pesticides.
They're doing all of Sudbury today.
here.
Oh, yeah.
There's been more
There's
people
nothing
Are they?
gotten
is rain
sick from them.
Yeah,
Little-
more dying.
Well, they sprayed the schools and
Near
fields.
the playgrounds.
Yep.
Do you vaccinate your horses for that?
Yes, be nuts if you didn't. Those are the ones that are dying.
Yeah.
If they're vaccinated and they have a booster, they're not gonna get AAA.
Yeah, actually, the barn that my daughter goes to, they've accelerated the vaccination, so it's every 6 months instead of
It's
every
supposed to be
year.
No, you do the booster every 6 months. That's, yeah.
Are you here for Edward Drive or Fort Pond?
No, she's with us.
Oh, okay.
We did, our group at Mass DP did sampling after the spray in southern Mass. Mostly public water supplies.
Yep.
Sampling
Mobilized.
mosquitoes?
Sampled for pesticides in the water.
Oh, okay. Yep.
What were the results?
Actually, I haven't heard about the results yet.
Yeah, they just.
I have a question for you. This
to
next one,
spray.
My
But
company
from what I heard
actually
before, when they
is
sampled
working for
before,
us.
they didn't get.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't think it were
They're
necessarily
supposed to
related
skip
to.
over the
It
water
wasn't
department.
related to part,
No,
but-
you don't have a finance, you don't have
How they do it.
financial.
Yeah.
Aerial spraying,
Well,
turn it off and on.
There, you'd be surprised how good they are. I've had people
There's enough
see
space.
it, on Vitamin, put on food seed, rice seed, and real tight areas. Yep. Depends on the individual.
No. It's
Have
a
a good
lady.
one.
Yeah.
It's Rick is on it, but it's the lady who's the chair. I can't think of her name right now.
This one's gonna turn into a,
This is an odd night. This
they
does
were
not.
handing out flyers down at
That's
the,
'cause she
State
would have-
Park.
Yeah, that's true.
It's gonna be a,
Yeah.
Maybe
it's
still, we
gonna
can
be
go
a,
through that too, because that's what happened at the last meeting. We were able to get all the
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, there's usually like twice as many
Last
last
meeting one.
Yeah.
Kind of fell off.
So,
I tried to-
what does that
I-
mean?
I tried to
Cluster
read it.
development?
gonna
We're
be,
gonna
it's
have
kinda,
Sidewalk
yeah, it's like a
or-
bunch of condominium houses or something.
multiple single-family dwelling.
Kind of that, they have a rec
Now it's,
area.
it's the
and all
fall,
that
planting
stuff.
season's coming, so we want to revisit it, because we had those homes all
Co-op
around.
space.
Kind of a-
Yeah. So everything was all set.
That's what I suspect.
Dewey Corners. That's
Something
kind
happened, so
of
we
close
weren't able
to,
to get done in time. I think it's
the lake.
we have to
Yeah.
apply.
Done within the next 4 weeks.
So we're
I
gonna
think
pick up
it's
fall.
one that somebody was gonna donate some land.
Everything's kind of just one age. You gotta start to replant.
I'm guessing,
Actually, I could do an update. We, I walked with Amy and Chase on the Smith property?
The SVT property?
No.
The one by Long
The one
Lake?
that's, or Brown property.
The one by Long Lake?
Yeah,
How
so
was
it's
it?
like basically the headwaters of Long Lake. There was a good variety of mostly native species, very few invasives. A couple piles of like car parts and dumped stuff here and there.
Great.
Nothing too alarming, but still certainly some stuff that might need to be cleaned up. It looks like there's a pipeline easement through there, which I hadn't seen in the maps that we
Pipeline
have.
as in
AT&T?
gas or?
Was it
I think
AT&T?
gas.
Gas?
No, pipeline. I think there was a right of way and
Standpipe?
yeah, the stakes. But nice property and definitely a lot of wetland areas and you know, the thing. So I looked at the Mass GIS, Oliver, which kind of helps give you a more holistic view of where your property is, you know, within a watershed and the resources. And it's very much kind of the headwaters of Long Lake on that side. You know, so I could see that being valuable from a conservation and a clean lakes standpoint.
How large is that again? I don't recall.
Like 10 acres or something?
It was bigger than that.
I thought that side of the street,
And
this is across from the farmhouse, right?
across, no, on the same side as the farmhouse, across from the big wetland complex at Long Lake. Because there's a
You were
smaller-
talking- yeah, but once you, isn't there a
There's a smaller
parcel that
parcel.
goes to the lake that they were talking about too?
Yeah, so that, I guess that needs to be clarified on what is potentially available. It sounds like it's pretty early in the process.
Wait, you mean, sorry, I didn't hear the beginning of that.
Yeah.
Oh, no, she was just adding in a discussion item.
It's a,
Something
other
like
Filling a
updates. I'm filling in other
Still
updates,
in a few minutes.
Oh,
basically. But it was
What
relevant
street is
to-
it off?
To Haddam.
Between Tahattawan and
Harwood.
Howard.
so you're not talking about this 195, you're talking
No.
about?
No,
No,
no, this
no,
is
no.
her,
I
this
am
is
not.
a filler that she didn't
Yep, this is an
put in, just
an
like a little
update.
update.
So it's a
Okay.
potential
Wilbur
purchase.
Brown's
It's a potential land
If you don't-
purchase.
Oh,
Have you been around long enough to know what
So
who
we-
Wilbur Brown was?
no,
Mary Brown.
no.
They go, if you go down to Tahattawan, there's a farmhouse on a steep curve.
Yep.
That piece of property, there used to be a barn there and stuff. It
So
isn't there
on the
anymore.
left,
Yep.
Okay.
past Pete Tierney's.
Wait, on the left as you go which direction?
So if Pete was on your left, heading towards town, it would be on your left.
Oh, okay.
But it's way down at the kind of, where that bad curve is.
Oh.
Across
So
from
if you look at the picture on the front of the one pager that I did, that's looking at the lake through that. Because I drive down there to go pick up my kid from school. Remember one day I was like, oh, this is a perfect wetland picture. So I took the picture,
There you
and
go.
then was able to use it for the illustration.
The house is in really bad shape. There's a tiny bit of knotweed.
Well, she just, I think she just passed away.
Okay.
The boys, the three boys, they live
Yep.
out in California.
Right, yeah, I had heard that.
So that's why they're selling it then, because
Yeah.
there's no one local.
Yep. It's too bad.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so it's-
They're
it's
pretty much
this
my age.
swath of land
Yeah,
here.
yep.
It's a good thing to do. Why not?
Yeah, protect the water.
But there was a big barn with it and
Mhm.
other outbuildings too.
Yeah, and I
It's
think.
really
that-
grown in now, though.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, I think the
I think the
barn's
debris-
gone, something must have got
Yeah,
rid of the barn.
there was the house and there was kind of some debris, but nothing real obvious.
Pretty
And then, like old vehicles and stuff like that.
Looked like an old farm
We're gonna
now.
present, would you rather us use the easel, the boards over here, or the boards
There.
up?
The tables, yeah.
Tables, unless there's members of the audience who are specifically here to, sometimes you get a lot of,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
we're-
sometimes you get
it's much
a lot of
easier
people,
kind of up
so
here.
if not, then
Yeah.
We'll ask.
There
tables.
may be some contaminant potential.
I guess I'll open up the 8 o'clock hearing.
There's
for
definitely
the
some dumping there.
Public hearing notice of intent, Mass Bay Transportation Authority parking lot,
Chickens.
R11-3-5, Mass DEP file number 204-89X.
We have an.
Improvement to expansion to existing MBTA parking lot facility.
Yeah, we've got that you have a number.
Well,
Oh, no.
the agenda is 89X, but there is a number. Yes, I have a DEP number.
Hold on a second.
Sorry, Holly Conger, MBTA Environmental. It's been a while.
Who would like this? We're gonna give That has the new number?
Yeah, that has the
Yeah, green
actual.
card.
Just put this in Amy's name.
And actually, if you wanna come all the way up so the microphone's.
I'm not really doing most of the
Oh, you
talking.
aren't? Okay.
No, I'm just saying hi and
That's
letting
gonna
them
go
really
in.
test,
That's going
but,
to folding for Amy.
so I'm sure, assuming you're all familiar with the MBTA parking lot,
Yeah.
at the train station. So this proposal is to expand that parking and add approximately 60 additional parking spaces over there, and do some improvements to the existing parking lot. We met with members of, I don't know if you came out, but we did meet with some members of Littleton out there with the local senator and rep maybe like 6 to 9 months ago to talk about this project. And so we are now proposing this design to expand the parking lot, and I'll let the engineers. Amy
Green, wasn't she at that meeting?
I think
Yeah,
she
Amy
was.
would've gone.
Somebody, yeah, so.
We should buy the rest of the property since you're, keep expanding on it.
Well, there's not really much more room to expand. It's pretty tight to get those 60 spots in.
Hopefully you have some greenery with
I
it,
know that land.
trees.
So that parking lot I take is at capacity plus?
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
people are
Yeah.
parking all
Yep.
on the island. and-
So that's
Right.
as a result of the increased train service?
A lot
Because it
of-
obviously has increased in the past.
And
5
probably
years.
More
more
trains stop at Littleton now than they
Yeah,
did
it's a main
before.
hub now.
So
Yeah.
once the Littleton became a Center Island platform, the trains that used to stop at South Acton now do come all the way out to Littleton. So there is a larger number of trains that come out all the way to Littleton than there used to be.
So I guess being one of the older people that knows the site fairly well, how much time have you guys kept or put forth in terms of your discovery of the soils and everything?
We've done the geotech analysis at both the parking lot for the pavement condition. That's what this project started as, was just pavement restoration. And then through a request from the town, the additional parking was added. And we also did some additional soils for the environmental and for, there's going to be a retaining wall.
Okay, because there's been quite a bit of testing on this site through the many verifications of other people that have tried to put through.
So is this on a slope? It's on the
Yes.
slope.
Very
yeah.
much so.
So that's
And
the
the
slope
this is-
that we,
That water's coming down the hill.
it weeps.
Yeah.
There's a seep in that slope.
So the wall is proposed with a subdrain to it to handle that.
So what is all this right
But
here?
there will be regrading down this.
Yeah, if you want to take
I-
do you
let
want to
me-
just kind of take a step back and we can kind of.
Through the project, yeah, I don't have that sheet
Yeah, because
out,
that-
but I have that right here.
I mean, by
So
that picture,
this-
it looks like the whole thing is being a parking lot, but it's really just half, almost like half of
Exactly.
it.
So
but
the
it's-
additional
it's a
parking is all on the
steep grade.
upper lot.
Right.
And then the retaining wall is going to be added
right
along the outside. We're extending from this edge, retaining wall to control the slope down. And then it's going to be an infiltration basin and then sloping down from that towards the wetland.
Is that a stream or a
3 to
path,
1,
that
3 to
dark
1.
green stripe there?
This dark green?
Yeah.
This is
No green. Down here like this. What is this?
Oh, the existing?
Is that, what is that? Is that a,
That may just be,
oops, sorry.
to be honest, I'm not sure. It looks like maybe they were doing some work and that may have been some hay bales or something when this was done. I'm not sure.
It's dark for hay bales.
It might be a shadow, is what I was thinking, but I'm honestly not sure.
It's not showing up on the survey when it was surveyed.
Right, exactly. We've been there. I
wall
can't
or
speak
anything
to
like
that.
that.
Right, there's a small structure
It's coming up from
actually
down.
up
Yeah.
in this area that's outside of our project area.
But there's no
and there's some
arrows
there's some
and-
ledge in this area that will be removed to expand
there's
it.
a lot
and-
to you.
There's a long
Right.
way
Blasting?
on this area.
It's under discussion on what's going to be allowed.
So maybe jackhammer?
Most likely
I'm not
hammering,
sure.
most
Yeah,
likely
that's
hammering.
right.
what the
I'm just
project-
put a question into the MBTA to see what they'll allow. The contractor, I believe, is
Oh,
already on
sure.
board for this.
Plus the rails for blasting, probably.
Isn't there a proposed development adjacent to this?
On the other side of the wetland, I know there is.
But not
And,
above.
and above, and I
Same.
think there is
It's
above too.
coming-
Yeah,
Above.
there is above
Yeah.
too also.
Above, because the water's coming down through that parcel that you're referring to.
So when that goes in, that's gonna cut into the seep too.
Right.
Okay.
So just this is 60 extra spaces?
Approximately.
Approximately,
Yeah.
yeah. It's-
And the way we had designed this also was we wanted to minimize any impact, so we are buffer zone only with regard to wetland resource areas. We extended where we could, and then, as you can see, the limit of work is where it is just to be able to catch up to the grade using 3-to-1 slopes. We are, with regard to stormwater, actually able to not only mitigate the net increase in impervious area, but actually the entire impervious area that is now going to that pond, we are meeting to the full standards. So we're meeting the recharge requirement for half-inch, we're meeting the water quality requirements. As Andy had mentioned, we did do some soil testing in that area, and the groundwater is about 6 feet down, so we have more than the 4 foot of separation that we need to make that as an infiltration basin. So
you're meeting a half-inch?
Half
Not
inch.
very much.
It's not for water quality. No, so that's just for water quality.
Okay.
We are meeting the 210 and 100-year storm for
Okay.
peak rate attenuation.
Okay.
So just for the water quality requirement, it's not a stormwater critical area, so we only need to meet the half inch for the infiltration portion of it, but it will still infiltrate
You mean
more than
this
that.
part?
Yes,
Will only
yes.
have a-
So under the lowest orifice, the storage beneath that will meet a half-inch, or actually even more. It's exceeding that half-inch requirement for the entire impervious area that's going into that. We technically, the net increase is about 16,500, I think, and we're treating 30,000, square feet.
So how are we tying
impervious
into
areas.
the existing structures that are there? And can you just go over the lot size that we're referencing this? Because it seems like it's been carved out.
With regard to stormwater, or for just regards to site layout?
Actually, both.
So for stormwater, there really is, basically, what we're looking at is this, actually, can you grab the other board? I
Yep.
have? Just because it will be a little easier to explain.
And is that line the 100-foot or 50?
This is the 100-foot.
Okay, can you estimate where the 50 is then? Halfway in between?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, because we need to know if any part of your lot is going into the 50.
So the MBTA is not subject to the local bylaws, so we are only required to stay the buffer zone under the Wetlands Protection Act. It's only the 100-foot.
Right. Okay, let's go back to that.
So this is just showing the existing watershed area for the upper area. We're not actually changing any of the land cover or drainage patterns for this portion of it. So we really focused on what's happening here. So under existing conditions, this is where the lot ends. It sheet flows into, sorry, it doesn't sheet, there's actually some basins, right?
There's a
Right, there
basin
are-
that collects this portion of the parking lot
and then
only.
discharges it into this basin right here, and then there's an overflow that just allows it to sheet flow down to here. So we're trying to mimic that condition, but obviously enlarging the basin to be able to treat the larger impervious area.
What's the condition of the basin now? I'm not familiar of the O&M that's been going on with that. It's been a few years since we've been out there to kind of look at those basins. Aren't there two basins that are
There
there?
is,
There's a
yes,
lower
there's
one here.
right. The lower one, we're not changing any of the
'Cause it's-
flows to it. We're
Right, but you
not.
need to know structurally how it's doing. I mean, it's been there quite a while.
Yes, I mean, we were focusing more on this one. I don't know if you know how.
I've been out there, but I haven't taken any pictures or anything recently.
I will say we're redoing this entire basin. So when you look at it, and that's partly just because of the where it's located, the existing location is right here. So it's in part of the new pavement area, as well as with the retaining wall and everything. We're having to not only significantly enlarge it, but we're also, they didn't have a forebay previously. So we are adding in any new catch basins. They've got deep sumps. We've got a forebay treatment prior to it going into the infiltration basin. And then we would have the same mechanism. We'd have an emergency spillway that would overflow.
But during construction, where's the water going to go?
The contractor would have to, most likely would probably use this as a sediment basin, maybe line it. I mean, they have different ways that they can treat
Okay,
the
those
water.
are certainly things that we'll need to discuss.
Yes, and
for
I
sure.
believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this is over an acre. So they will be getting a NIPD's permit, the contractor, so any of the, you know, means and methods for dealing with stormwater during construction, they would have to follow the EPA NIPD's construction general permit. And that is a note that we have on the plans.
And typically for state contracts, the contractor is required to get that permit and develop the SWIP, so I wouldn't have it now. But it's very typical that it would be a requirement that I submit it to the commission once it's developed for their review.
What, do you have any, I know you mentioned a forebay, do you have, like any oil water separators to catch the inevitable lots of drips?
There's catch basins with deep sumps and hoods, so.
Right. So how do you separate the oil, like in overflow?
Well, so the hood, usually it kind of comes down, and so the oils would kind of come up, and they wouldn't actually be able to go down. So that's how, that's typically separated. So there's no additional like if you're talking about a proprietary separator or like a larger oil water separator, there is not that. Typically, we don't do those for parking lots. They're not a land use with higher potential pollutant loads.
Except it's right next to the wetland, so
it is. So what we do need to, I mean, it's going through multiple different, if you want to call them treatment devices before it could even get to the wetland.
Okay.
So the first thing is the catch basins with deep sumps and hoods. That's where it's going to collect the biggest amount of sediment and potentially the oil in there, so they would clean the oil from within inside the catch basin. And then the large, then the smaller sediment would end up in the forebay, be treated there, and then it's pretty clean by the time it gets to the infiltration portion.
So just reading some of the notes. So an O&M plan will be submitted at a later date? Okay. I guess it's a concern that I have is that I want to make sure that we've looked at this property numerous times, and we want to make sure that we're going back into the data fields of what we've seen over the last, what seems like decades, to make sure that it was constructed a certain way based on the load that was there, and we thought that was a big load there. And now what you're saying is we're almost 62 more spaces that we want to make sure. I mean, it's a fragile piece, and you're going right up to the wetlands. And for us, certainly would be looking at someone to perhaps look at a third-party review for this as well. I don't know. I think Amy had mentioned that to someone as well.
Although the green area that's outside of the basin, how is that being maintained? Is that going to be?
This?
Yeah.
So this is the side slope. This is basically just the area that's sloping down.
Grassy?
It's just 3-to-1 slope.
Is it going to be just natural, or you're going to mow it?
It's going to be steep.
Yeah, I don't think
probably
he's
just natural.
Yeah, no, because there's a wall
Yeah.
and, yeah.
That's good, it'll absorb more water that way.
That's right.
It'll stop the flow.
Where's the tracks?
Let's go back to
The
other.
tracks are over on this side.
Way down here.
Right.
So this is the high portion of the site, and it all kind of comes down.
Do you know where the barn was located?
I do not know.
It's gotta be, yeah, it's gonna be up in here someplace. There was a barn there originally, huge barn.
Not since I've been there.
Since I've been here in town.
I believe you.
So
I never
with
saw
this
the barn.
aerial that you're using, can you see the, I can't really see what the structures are there now, kind of overgrown.
The notes say that the wetland line is pretty old, December 2017.
Probably older.
The lines
No,
were
no,
for
it
at
was-
least 3 years.
Right, it was reflagged for this project.
It was reflagged.
That was for this project.
But
yes.
did anyone look at it since, when it was flagged?
It's
Right.
not,
Is our
they flagged it,
Right.
we filed. Amy, no one's come out
Okay.
since we filed.
Okay. So
Oh,
the
so
flags
this-
have all been refreshed?
As
December
of 2017.
Oh, okay.
2017.
That's the latest
That's the
date?
latest.
Oh, okay.
So they'll have to be refreshed
Flagged.
for a site walk. And then you'll have to put out some stakes of your areas in question and
Which areas are you looking for?
anything in the buffer zone. Structures, grading.
So basically the limit of the
the 100-foot line, limit of the parking lot, where the basin's gonna go.
Would like to know how the existing structure's doing.
Mm.
There was some path out there that there was a wetland that went through it.
There was some wetland mitigation too done when the new station was built, sort of down along
Was
the
it-
tracks.
So
I'm
when
not sure.
they moved this down, they
Yep.
did, I don't think it
Sort
was
of,
on this side, I think it was
it's where
up
you're
here.
pointing, yes.
Yep.
No, but there was a,
Okay.
you'd have to dig out Mark Donahue's stuff.
Well, I think there's quite a few plans of this property, so I'm hoping that your office has kind of gone back through some of the other data that's been submitted in previous years, previous filings.
Our notes also talk about possible third party.
That's what I just mentioned.
Oh,
Houses
sorry.
have green.
I can't.
It says
Right.
not
You
green.
can't,
Right.
you can't.
It
Well,
can't be
yeah.
sensory.
Right.
No,
Right.
I would,
Right.
we'd have to recuse ourselves, or does it?
No,
That works.
I believe, so we would defer if you have some references, because we would be using. What's it, Fuss and O'Neill?
That's another one that the highway department uses. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
So I think what we'd like to do is, if you can let us know when you're ready for us to come out, we'd like to schedule a site walk.
When do you usually do your site?
When we get notification.
No, I mean, is it a weekend
Oh.
evening, weekend
Usually
morning and
weekday-
evening? Yeah,
weekday
that's what I-
evenings usually.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I didn't
Yep.
mean a specific date, but
Yeah.
just so.
As long as we have daylight.
Okay.
Do we know if the flags are still?
We'll have to go out and look.
Okay, we'll
Yeah.
verify.
I have Friday late afternoon open now, again.
So we meet we'll meet again in 2 weeks, so I'm not sure what your timeline is, but if you could let Amy know, we are happy to try and set up.
Should we coordinate the site visit through Amy?
Well, what she'll do is, once you're ready, she'll kind of pull us, and it doesn't have to be done at a meeting, so we can do it kind of offline to
Sure.
get on site, and then we can go from there.
And for the third-party review?
We would like
coordinate
some
that too?
suggestions. I think had been her question for others that you might suggest as well, for the scope.
Who we would want to?
No, meaning if there's, no, meaning for
Or
us.
you
There's some
guys would
other names.
suggest. I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
can usually give us who you want us to
Use an
send it to.
Oxbow.
I don't think
Not
so.
sure.
There's a
There's a big
There's a variety
stormwater
of
component
people.
to this. Like,
Right.
usually these guys. do.
So we'll talk to, Amy's away,
Yeah.
and so we'll try and come up with some names.
Definitely know some stormwater.
Yeah, okay. So would you like us to put you on, the next meeting is in 2 weeks?
I would say yes, and then we'll coordinate with Amy. If we can't get
Just in
everything to
case.
happen in
Yeah.
2 weeks, then we'll just push it out to the next meeting, if that's okay.
Yep, sounds great. And she has copies of these?
Oh, yeah, these
Yeah.
are, everything
These
was
were submitted.
included in,
In the
as all part of
package,
this.
yeah.
Great, okay.
Notice of intent. Just a question of how the third-party review is going to happen. So if we're going to be continued to the next hearing, when would that happen?
We would have to see availability of someone
Okay.
first. But
Right,
I
and
think
that's why I'm thinking in 2 weeks.
But you'd have to verify the wetlands anyway. before-
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we gotta get out there and do the
Yeah, I
staking
think both
and
tracks
site
can
visits.
go parallel to each other.
Yeah.
Okay. Excellent.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that the balance of the property that the Tions right now?
The red line? No, the red line is just the limit of
The
work.
red line's the limit of work.
How far is
There's
the
not
property?
a whole bunch of extra property out there though at the moment, right? The lines.
It's hard to
I-
get-
it goes right
The
down.
backside I know was
This
around,
is-
that was the one I
It goes
wasn't
a
sure
little
how far it
bit.
went.
So basically, I mean, we're right there with the limit of work line along here,
On the
Yeah.
top.
but it goes, his property, that goes into the
Into the
wetlands.
wetland?
Into the wetlands, yeah.
So we
'cause
do
we have
ask that at
a-
some point you have a locus with the whole property on there, on one of your sheets.
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
Right.
We
Just
might
so,
have, did we include that on the cover sheet? No, we just showed the limit work area. The existing condition shows most of it. It's one small little piece that just
Okay.
continues over
But you
here.
reference that there's another wetlands?
No, it's this, it's just this wetland goes beyond.
Okay.
So
if we can have a,
Like, we wouldn't have flagged the other side because we're not doing any work.
right, but we want something that shows the entire aerial of the entire property. Okay. Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing notice of intent, Healy Connor, 195 Tahattawan Road, R07-10, Mass. DOT file number 204-89X, construction of a open space development including tree clearing, scrubbing, grading, construction of subdivision, roadway, stormwater management system, septic system, and multiple single dwellings.
Would you like me to put it up on an easel, or?
Do we have people in the audience interested in this one? We do. Okay. So, yeah, if you would mind maybe sticking it on an easel on this side, that's works.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Do you want a separate plan,
I like
second
this one
plan?
better, but.
You have two plans?
I just got the one side. You want me to grab one from over there?
Yeah, it's literally sticking out.
Yeah, I can see him.
Hey, Matt, can you grab, it's right there sticking out, just so we can put one on the table too? Yep, there's 2 copies there. Yeah, that's it, yep. There are 2 copies in the file if you guys want one down there too. For this. Thanks.
And this is similar to the development, just beyond Idlewood.
You mean
Just over the tracks.
Oh, really? The old one?
Well,
It's old.
yeah, but it sounds like it. Somebody was passing out flyers at the Bay Park Saturday. This kind of sounds like communal type.
In the back. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you all?
You want to introduce yourself for everyone?
Certainly. Good evening. My name is Bruce Ringwald. This is Mark LaValle. We're from GPR, Goldsmith Preston Ringwald. We're here representing the applicants, the Glavy Family Nominee Trust for Healy Corner at 195 Tahattawan Road. 2 sheets that aren't in the notice of intent that I have on the board, and I can leave them with you, that I felt would be a good place to start because we haven't been before you on this. And these are from the preliminary plan submission that we have with the planning board. This is a conventional subdivision layout. The whole back half of the property is not shown. This line right here is right here on the locus. But this is shown up with 2 reduced frontage lots and 1 frontage lot, and then a series of lots over here off of a road with using a series of common driveways. This approach obviously has a lot more work and lots in buffer zones and some more crossing of wetlands.
Just a quick question. How many crossings was that one?
On here, well, these driveways weren't laid out.
Just
so
approximately.
They would all be able to stay on upland, but in buffer zone. Here there'd be 1, 2, 3, 4 crossings.
gotta be in that area.
Okay?
Yep.
At the same time as the preliminary plan, as is required, we had an open space plan whereby we moved the work over here, set it up with one crossing to come back to 4 lots on the upland island back in here. And that one crossing occurs right here, which isn't shown. This is all in an upland island. There would be a crossing to come across and then driveways that would break off in either direction. So it totally reduced the amount of work in the buffer zone. Still had a number of lots that are in the buffer, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lots in buffer zone.
Can I just questions, when you're talking about buffer, are you talking 0 to 50 or have
Somewhere
anything?
between 0 and 100.
Okay.
And like the back of this one is just the 50 to 100, but it's within the lot. And so in our conversations with the planning board and in ours with the applicant and such, they asked that we try to look at this to try to condense more into the meadow area and not have so much in the back. And that brings us to where we are today with the submission that has been filed before the planning board and is filed here with you with this notice of intent. And now we're at a situation whereby there are 14 lots, including the existing, 15 lots, including the existing house that are all up over in this area. These 2 lots have 0 to 50 to 100 in the backyard, but all the proposed work for these properties are outside of the buffer zone. There's no notice of intent for these lots as we get into the detailed sheets. And then we discussed with the planning board to have this be a common driveway to come in to serve these 2. So we reduce the amount of impact coming in here with a common driveway versus a roadway, much narrower, just right in between the 50 foot from here and the 50 foot from here. So there's a little bit of grading, which we'll see in detail. There is a wetland crossing here, and then the 2 sites in the back that are outside the 50-foot buffer zone, but the drive to get there is in that 50-foot buffer zone.
So one crossing.
One crossing, that's correct. So I'm going to, this shows you in detail.
Is that one in here? I know you said your other ones
Yep.
aren't. What page
Just
is
the
that?
first 2. This is C21. This is the same as the one I was just on, except for it's not all colored up. I'm going to come back to this one for just a second because it's the same as what you have there. The whole property is 42.2 acres in round numbers. This parcel that's in green here, I have to cheat because I can't remember exactly, is 12 acres and change. This lot, lot 15, is a large lot, but with this area and this area on it, it has 17.2 acres of conservation restriction on it. So everything you see in green hatch and everything you see in red hatch will have conservation restrictions on them. No development other than there's an existing trail, Nellie's Path on this side, and an existing trail, John's Way on this side, and the Trails Committee would like to make a connection from land up here, conservation land up here, to conservation town property land down here, in efforts to continue a trail that goes up down through Durkee and to the train station that you were just talking about. The purple parcel here,
It's gotta go over Mish's property.
the purple parcel here is not an open space parcel, but it's not a parcel that's developed either. It'll have a common septic system and a stormwater basin, which we'll get into in one of the subsequent sheets. These sheets are the legal sheets that, design the lots, cut out the lots. Through those, C41 and C42 are the the existing farmhouse at 195, Bud's house, the outbuilding behind the house, the barn, the meadow, out into the area around here. It's got a periphery of trees around the outside edge. That meadow comes right down close to the wetland edge here. There's soil testing that was done throughout the property. And this is the balance part back in through. This is this upland island, and then soil testing back in the upland island in the back. And again, this sheet from here on down is another portion of the property, which is got some upland area, but it's predominantly wetlands, as what we saw in the previous pages. So going to C5.1. C5.1 shows you, what did you get there?
To the head, it did not pan out.
Okay, C5.1 is the site layout and utilities plan. It's showing you utilities coming in from the road. Again, here's your edge of the 100-foot buffer and the 50-foot buffer down here. There's also this piece that sits down here where there's an existing trail that comes into the woods, which is Nellie's Path, and there's been a request for trailhead parking to be put here, and so we're going to have 3 gravel parking spaces at this point here, and then another 3 gravel parking spaces here with a gravel path that comes on across the back here for access to John's Way. And I'll get into that.
Before or after the wetlands crossing?
Before the wetlands crossing.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that's hard to picture where that is.
Yeah, so I can show you when we get into the
Yep.
next piece. So this is the drive that comes down. It comes through the upland portion. Here's where the crossing is proposed. We're proposing to use Ready Rock type block on either side of the crossing with guardrail, and on down on the well, I'll get to that in the next sheet. We're looking at about 1,500 square feet of filling of wetland here, and at 3-to-1 we have a little over that of 4,600 square feet of wetland replication as proposed.
What's the width of the crossing?
The width of the crossing, this way?
Hmm.
I'm going to guess.
Say 50-ish feet.
Yeah, 40 scale, not even that much. At 40 scale, it's 25 feet.
Okay. And then what are you using
25
to
20.
put underneath? What type of, a culvert box open?
Yeah, there'll be a culvert that'll be embedded into the ground and then backfilled on the bottom.
But
30 inches or 6.
Open bottom?
A 36-inch culvert that'll be sunk in round, so it will be like this. So you'll have this, and the existing grade is here. So this portion would be backfilled for any amphibian travel that wants to go within the wetlands, if there is any in that area.
Is a box, an open bottomed box culvert possible there?
A box, open bottom, potentially. The problem with the open bottom box is establishing enough of a foundation. The box is very wide, and so now you have the weight on that, and so you need to have something to control it. So now you're digging up that whole section and putting in a foundation, footings underneath those.
I think we would like for you to look into that as well.
Okay. So that's where that proposed crossing is. This shows it all a little bit better when you turn to C6.1 and C6.2. C6.1 probably. So C6.1, these are the grading, drainage, and grading plans. So you can see that the topo of this road starts at obviously the existing way, comes up to a high point here, and then drops down to a low point. And
What numbers are we talking? Just ballpark when you say dropping down, how many feet are we talking?
We're going to be starting up here at a 306 and coming down here to a 298, so 8 feet.
Okay.
8 foot change in grade.
Now, what has encouraged the extension into the wetland area through, doing the crossing and all that? Why do you have to do that part?
We're looking at 17 units, including the existing house. And we've clustered everything in here as part of the open space. There is the big upland area in the back here with a very minimal, as we said, 25-foot crossing of the wetland here to get across to this area to have two homes that are situated in the back. We're just trying to maintain that. We have that access to gain access there. What we have done here is its driveway is cross-pitched, super elevated to one side. We have a trench drain along that entire side of the drive with a socked perforated pipe within it. So it'll catch the runoff through the stone and then come on in, and that discharges into a sand filter here, where then it discharges for an overland flow towards the wetlands. And we have a low flow pipe out of it, bringing more hydrology down towards the replication areas. And through to that.
So how do you keep like sand and salt out of that discharge?
Out of this and through here. That's possible if you're sanding this road or salting it, that you will get some salt into that. You'll get salt into it just because of the cars traveling off of the roads in town that are salted. And they're going to have it on their tires as well as they come through. So there will be some salt and sand into that area. But there's an O&M that's part of the subdivision for addressing with the maintenance of the drainage.
And the town carries out the O&M?
The town carries out the O&M. This road
Is it
here
private?
will
Is that a private
not.
road?
This is a private way.
Okay.
The town will not be carrying that out. As for this drainage here, this is all closed drainage system with deep sump catch basins through here and through here. And that all comes in, goes into a sediment forebay, and then out into the basin itself. It has a low flow outlet right here, and it has an emergency overflow, and then it has discharge over riprap, and then through vegetation of over 50 feet to get to the wetlands. We do have grading in the outer 50 feet of that. You'll also notice what we've done here, although we've tested all these lots and we have passing perks, we had much better perking soil up over in this area. And so rather than having mounds and valleys all throughout the site and having them direct the whole development, we've opted to use a common system. In this plan, as submitted to you, we had the primary system down on the lower portion and the reserve system up above. And in looking at this, we're recently done a flip of that so that all this grading and the buffer down in here won't occur, because we're going to put the primary system up here. And that should prevent us from having to come down here, because as you all well know, usually when a septic system fails, they wind up digging up the same area and putting the system back in the same general location. So this will be a treated system, so many years before any of that ever happens. These are the parking here with the trail that comes down along Alfred Trail, and then there'll be a trail that comes off of that over to John's Way across the back of this lot. That piece was in the field would be a marked out area across the field to get to the existing trail that is in the woods.
So that driveway that comes across from that services the other houses, what's the width of that road?
Have it at 12 feet? 12 feet wide, and then it has a widening to 16 feet here, and another one right here. The locations of those, by the regulations, they should be every 300 feet. This is obviously much closer. This is less than 300 feet. But what we tried to do is make it so that you can see and have places to stop, as well as see at the crossing. To come over here, if someone's coming from the other direction, you have a place to pull over. We obviously can't pull over because it's going to be narrower as you go across the crossing, and then throughout the site. So there's 12 foot wide with two widenings at 16 feet.
So at your widenings, is it are you saying that at the Whitings would be possibly the areas where they'd be able to push snow as well, coming off?
They'd be able to push snow off to the side on that. I mean, mostly when you're plowing something like that, you're windrowing it right down the side.
I'm
of
just
the
concerned with,
driveway.
as we talked about, with the salt and the sand, and then coming in towards that wetlands area there. If there can be a designated, where you said the soils are a little bit better on the upland, if there can be designated areas for some snow storage.
I think you have some picked out on the.
It's on another sheet.
Sheet that's coming up. I have some locations for that set up. These are two just renderings of the same thing that we just talked about. I'll skip over those. This is a plan profile for Dennis Circle, the main way. As you can see, the existing topography comes down to a low point and back up. And the proposal is coming in down to that same general low area and then back on up at the cul-de-sac. For here, utilities underneath, the water main and the drainage. And this is a plan profile for Alfred Trail. Again, comes on down to a low point down in here, and this is where the proposed culvert is proposed on. So then we go on to C81 and C82, which are the stormwater prevention plans. And we have construction storage areas established in through here for during construction. This shows you better in the whole big picture the parking proposed for the trailhead over here for Nellie's Path, and the parking proposed for the trailhead for John's Way. The family wants to do signs similar to your conservation signs, but also have a place with a plaque on either one of those that gives a little bit of history for what the names of Dennis Circle, Alfred Trail, John's Way, and Nellie's Path are, and the different family members through the years that they all relate to and give credence to. This is the standard notes relative to the stormwater prevention, cut and fill, protection, hay bales, construction entrance, temporary stockpiles, standard road details for the cross sections, the drainage along the side of the drive that I spoke of, cross pitching. It shows here where the driveway where the drainage would be on the cross pitch across that drive. Paving details. These are all details relative to the sewer and the water. And then we have some drainage details for catch basin, double grate basin, drain manhole. Then we have a stone diaphragm at both of the parking locations for the trailheads. And those be to pick up runoff across the parking and give some recharge from that. And this is detail of the basin itself off the end. Out by the road, well out of your jurisdiction, but so you see it, there's some runoff from the two lots that front onto Tahattawan Road, and they'll have infiltration chambers up there for collection. And then we have a replication plan, along with some other notes on here. So the area of the replication, the planting plan for the replication, notes about planting plan for the replication here, that's the street trees. Notes about removal of the earth, stockpiling it, and setting up the replication areas. Again, on your 3-to-1 for your regulations. And the detail of the sand filter, and then turning radii, which are there for
Bruce,
planning purposes. Yes,
have
sir.
you had the fire department review any of this roadway yet?
Yes, we have talked with Deputy Chair Tom and gone over hydrant placement, access, both in here, access for the fire trucks, turning radii up in the back, the whole thing.
Well, as you know, when you go into the 50 under our regs, you have a series of things you have to do. One of which is alternative analysis for not doing that. Instead of putting the extra extension into the upland area, have you looked at putting houses where,
Let me-
2 additional houses there instead of going into the wetland area to put the houses.
Okay, so you have alternatives analysis that's required out of that.
Yes.
And part of that alternatives analysis is not, as I remember correctly, and I could be wrong, not so much of not doing that, but it is what is the alternatives analysis here? And as I showed at the beginning,
Conventional.
we started
Yeah.
with a conventional layout, and we went from a conventional layout to an open space for less disturbance. And then we went and modified our open space to have even less disturbance. So we're talking a 17 lot proposed development that have 1 crossing and 2 lots in the buffer zone.
But we have a no disturb of 50.
I understand.
So
And we've
you
asked
have
for a
to-
waiver, and we've put together all the paperwork relative to that waiver.
Can you talk us through the waiver, like what you've done?
Certainly.
Just because this has just been presented, so we have not.
No, I totally understand.
So.
And the alternatives analysis is the minimum environmental impact.
Correct. And we believe that we've gone through this, the project. I gotta get back to the right place here in my packet here. We've gone through the project and created the minimum environmental impact from how it started and what we looked at under conventional development. It is, we're at that minimum point now.
So for wetlands and looking at environmental impacts versus, so I definitely appreciate the, all the options, like you've put together a ton of information, and I've found it's been very useful. I think what Anna is trying to get at, and I am wondering as well, is it's just the 2 lots with the crossing and the filling. I think it's really just explaining, why do you need those 2 lots? Why isn't what's down below enough, or why isn't there an area, it looks like there's space without crossing or filling a wetland. And so we want to know why this is less environmentally damaging than not crossing the wetland at all and potentially still getting your lots in. So that's the piece of the puzzle we're trying to.
I understand. So.
I think, and chime in if I didn't
No, that's
characterize that.
So I'm going to leave the color and go to this one because it has all your little wetland areas marked up. We have a wetland area within here and here, and a wetland finger within here. This is upland, this is upland, this is upland.
When was that flagged?
This was all flagged last summer and
last summer.
last summer and fall.
Okay, no one's
So within
looked
a
at
year.
it in terms of, that I
In
know.
terms of the
no.
commission, no.
Okay.
So this finger here, as it comes on in, does not have adequate upland area for the 2 lots. This finger here has adequate upland area for 4+ lots. And we reduced it down to reduce the impact in that area to just the 2 lots. There's fingers over in here where we had for previous lots, and again, we removed that because you have to go into the 50-foot to gain access to the back portions on here, and you have to be on the edge over here. So it was going to be a bigger impact onto the wetlands in here, and this portion in here, again, there isn't the upland area to put those lots. So if I put the lots over here, if I took these out and put them here, now I've got this up and down valley of mounds, and I just have all these lots working grading on this slope down towards the wetlands. So it's our feeling that we have done the minimal amount of disturbance in the buffer zone. For, again, 17 lots and having only 2 in the buffer and 1 crossing, we feel that we've definitely done that minimum amount. And then I was just about to get into your waiver request here, and we have this project that we spoke of. We do have for Elford Trail, the wetland crossing, which is disturbance within the 50-foot BVW, because obviously on either side of that crossing, and just a smidgen of area right in here where there's a pinch point. We looked at taking a drive around from this side, and the same thing winds up happening where you have access in there. And it's a much longer area along the buffer to get on by. This area seemed to have the least amount of impact on that. From the standpoint of the property, again, 44 acres of land. We're working on 11 acres that aren't restricted, and we have close to 30 acres, just shy of 30 acres that are restricted with conservation restriction on either private land or the open space, and another 3.5 acres that are restricted with the drainage basin and the septic system for the site. And this is a Title V fully compliant septic system to have minimal impact on the whole site from that standpoint. The proposed disturbances, offset, the existing house is 400 feet away. The current meadow, it's mowed, is 20 feet away from the wetlands. We're pulling everything, as I said, back from that further away and having less disturbance on the area. The ability of doing this development for these number of lots allows us to have this open space and these restrictions that are set up to maintain the existing trails of both John's Way and Nellie's Path, and the ability for the town that's been trying to work on a connection with the Trails Committee to go across the back, and we've agreed to, the applicants agreed to that as well, and to preserve 30 acres plus out of this, 32 acres out of this 44 acres as open space and not built upon in any manner in the future.
So is that buildable without a restriction?
Excuse me?
The area
Who would
A?
have ownership of
Is that
Area
buildable?
This area A is going to be deeded to an entity, whether it's the town or homeowners association. This area A conservation restriction is part of lot 15, and that restriction will exist, and we're setting up an entity to hold the CR from both of these.
So could you
Is
develop
that
that
open
otherwise?
space now? Is that field now?
This is where the field is now. This is all wooded.
Oh,
So is there any way to area A not crossing a wetland to develop it? So
Here?
is it developable without a waiver in the first place?
I would say no. You'd have, you come around to here, but then you'd have to cross.
So you still have to cross at least once.
At least once to
build
get
it.
there. Yep.
It's a good question.
Okay.
So you said that conservation restriction is part of lot 15?
Yes. So if I come back to this, lot 15 starts here in Alfred Trail, and it's this piece down here and all the way around through here. And then this other open space that's in green around the outside edge is not. So out of the total lot 15, they've got a little less than 2 acres, or a little over 2 acres that is not restricted, but this portion up and through here is wetlands and then buffer. So they have this small area right here that's really their buildable portion of the property.
Why did you have to make it part of the lot, or could it just been separate?
It was requested to become part of the lot.
By who?
By the family and by a potential purchaser. And it meets the full requirements of the open space zoning.
Cut all the trees.
You can have
You
it
just
set
can't
up
build anything.
the first open space plan that was done in
Restriction
town,
means that you can't.
up off of Harwood Road, was done in
You
that
can't
same
just don't
manner,
build on it.
whereby there's a big piece of property that is owned, and they have conservation restriction on it, but it's privately owned.
I mean,
So-
when we generally look at a waiver and development too, it's something that you have to do that way, and there's no other option, and to me, this doesn't meet that. There are other options.
Other
besides
options
doing a crossing.
excuse me?
There are other options for that cluster development without going into a crossing and through the
And
50-foot. it's not necessary.
I would disagree.
Question on the CR and the intent of the CR for Area A. So we know that.
The red area?
Correct.
I'm sorry, I apologize for being
the
a
further to the top.
Yep.
So, just follow me through. So we know that nothing can be built on that, but that nothing precludes them from clearing it all.
Yes, it'll be in the CR that they won't be able to clear it.
Because some CRs you can still
I
do work.
understand, yeah.
So I just want to be clear that that's a CR that stays natural, that it's not
That's the
a.
intent.
Would it have a
And I'll have
management
drafted language
practice?
for you. I'm sorry, what's that?
Would it have a woodland management practice type thing on it?
It's potential. I haven't seen the final language or the draft language, but I'll have the draft language for you for the CR.
Are you gonna use, what's the attorney's name? I understand there are very few CR attorneys around
The
at
fellow
the
that was
moment.
just here.
Yeah, the
Not
king,
Joel,
guy who
what's
did the
his name?
Kinghorn property.
It'd be similar to King, some way it's
Well,
similar to
so I guess that's my
Kinghorn.
question. Would it be like that 30-page document similar to Kinghorn, or is it? I'm thinking back to a recent development where there was an agreement that a parcel would not be developed, and all of a sudden it's now for sale and developable.
Well,
It got
yeah.
backed out.
You could
So-
that can also be part of a third-party review, which we haven't
Right.
gotten to yet.
Yeah.
Does the planning board currently have a third-party review
Yes.
going on?
Yeah. We have a third-party review for the whole subdivision site plan piece and drainage, the whole piece,
Who did they
including
choose?
traffic.
Is Green doing that?
Yeah, Green's-
Okay. And they've been on site, so they've already.
No, they haven't called to coordinate a site visit with me yet.
Okay.
They were talking about it at the end of last week, but I haven't heard directly from them yet.
Is any of this staked out?
Right now, no.
But it's
but I can-
flagged.
It's all flagged.
Okay.
It's all there.
So I think
And
Maybe we
We'd
could see
like
the
to set up a
flags.
we
sidewalk
kind of
with
know
you.
what our protocol is, that we would see the flags, but we'd also ask that the crossing be staked as well.
Yep.
How about the center of the driveway somewhat?
Yeah,
We can
anything,
do that.
anything that's within kind of,
We can give you a center line staking of Alpha Drive.
what's your time frame on that?
We'll have it ready whenever you're ready to walk it. We're ready.
I don't know if it would be helpful, but maybe the open space green area, you could state the limits of that as well. I think that'd be,
That would be a bit much.
with that.
That would be a bit much. You know, that whole back is nothing happening to
Isn't
it.
it? Okay.
What's gonna happen in that conservation restriction area?
What's going to happen in
Yeah.
that conservation restriction area?
Yeah, it's green, so it's obviously different than the brown.
It's just that the green part will be owned by a different entity. The red portion will be owned by an individual, but both will have the same CR on it, the same general language, the same restrictions.
Two different tiers.
But there'll be there'll be one holder of the CRs, two different owners of the property. underlying
Potentially, you
property.
could have two different owners of the CR based on
You
the
could.
use.
You-
So
two different
subdivision
owners of the
trustees-
CRs? Yes.
No, holders, right.
Holders. Oh, yeah, we
Correct,
could have that
holders.
as
So,
well.
Right. So based on, I think what Carl's asking is, what is the intention? Is it a walking trail? Is it, for bicycles, for ATVs?
No,
Those
no
are-
motorized equipment, walking.
Those are the things that have to be flushed out.
Walking in, that would be in the draft CR that we'll provide you.
So, getting back to the point of the CR that we had done for the Kinghorn property was very comprehensive,
Okay.
incredibly comprehensive. I think that's kind of set the standard in my mind
Yeah, for sure.
for what we need.
Okay.
So you may wanna ask Amy for a copy of that.
Kinghorn?
I think.
Are there any crossings in the open space trail area?
There's quite possibly crossings of the trail across wetlands, yes.
Okay.
But they've been there, the trails have been there for ages.
Okay. I've not walked.
And I have not survey located them because
Right.
I haven't had a need to. One's on the northern edge of the property, one's on the southern edge of the property, and the western edge is where the Trails Committee is interested in making a connection.
I'd like to see a plan developed without the extension of the two houses. An option, like what it would look like without that.
That's an alternative for
This is an
sure.
alternative plan.
We need I agree, I think we need an explanation on that, of that alternative.
How would that be different than, we'll say Durkee Farm next door to this, where they're in the 50-foot throughout the
So
thing?
they were permitted
They have-
for the current regulations.
In
before the current
waiver,
regulations.
we did the 50 in the waiver.
Yeah.
In the
The waiver
50-foot
did
buffer
exist
zone?
Yeah,
when they were
in
permitted.
prior.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
still.
Can we go back to the plan that
Sure.
has the wetlands colored in relationship to the lots? Yep. What one is that? I think that shows like where your paths are.
What was that?
I was just saying that that would show paths, like for the trails and open space, and what part of open space is wet in the rear of the property.
If you look at the town GIS and it.
Do you have an aerial? Did you submit an aerial and?
No.
No, okay.
When you look at the town GIS and other mappings, it shows upland islands back in here, and another one over in here, this one. And when we went out there and had Oxbow out there, they said it wasn't to the extent that the aerials show them to be, so we chose not to map it at all.
Oxbow actually gave us an aerial in there.
Yeah, there's an aerial in the.
Yeah, often the GIS doesn't quite match, obviously,
Oh, yeah,
because
obviously.
you can't get down to that
Obviously.
resolution.
But we said, hey, take a look at these,
Mm.
because there was another
Yep.
thought of development of this property previously where that upland ratio to wetland ratio was a key factor in it, and we chose not to go down that road.
Okay. So planning board has a third party, so we would be ultimately in on that, we
Yep.
hope. So if we have questions, that would be put forth to them.
Are they doing stormwater and
They're doing full stormwater.
resource area?
Yep.
Who's
Resource
doing
areas,
it?
I don't know
Yep.
about resource areas.
Yeah,
but
we're
they're doing
interested in
the
environmental
stormwater.
impacts.
I mean, they're gonna be taking a full look at the
Sure.
stormwater. The nice thing about the way we have it set up is that there may be a lot of linear footage of wetlands out here, but there's a very limited area that you need to concentrate on looking at because we pulled everything else away from it in all the other areas.
Well, however.
I would gladly walk the whole line
Yeah,
with you if you want, but I'm just
because if
telling you
something
that-
changes midstream while it's still open, we still would have to go back and look at it.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
okay.
Or like in the winter and you can't see, and then you're waiting till we can
Right,
see.
then you
So
would
we
have
need
to wait,
Yeah,
so.
we do need to go line. I think we have audience
Yep.
input, I'm guessing.
Okay. Chairman wanna?
You want to set up a site?
We're good.
I think-
Talk to Amy as well too, though. So we have to do
We'll
that
I think
also.
set up something now, and
Speaking-
she's not back till next Monday, so if you wanna set something up between now and then, or whatever, we're around.
Okay. I think we need at least some key spots
Oh, yeah, I'll get
staked
them
before
staked,
we-
that won't be a problem.
Yep. Okay, do you wanna take questions?
Anybody got any questions?
If you can identify yourself, please, for the audience.
Name and address.
Yeah, sure.
Or name and street.
Brian Beam, 271 Harwood. I'll just point to my property in here. if that's
Sure.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, this is us here. And he didn't mention the vernal pool that we have on our property. And I'm curious how all this change of drainage might impact that pool.
Well, that's what I was thinking as well, is that
Is
such
it
an
100-foot
extensive
habitat
network of
buffer?
Yeah,
wetlands
and-
needs upland as well.
Is it certified?
And I
Needs,
feel like,
right.
all up, anything
It's
above
labeled.
it is resource area for the vernal pool as well, so.
Is it labeled?
Yeah, it says.
It's a certified, did you
It
say?
says
It
vernal
is
pool.
not certified.
It's
It's
labeled.
not, but his own, their
Labeled.
consultant called it a vernal pool.
Doesn't matter if it's
If it's labeled.
Yeah, I mean, they advised,
It can be
did you read the
certified as part of this
consultant, the
process.
wetland
Sorry,
consultant?
It's labeled.
No?
If
Yeah,
it's,
they
if
advised
it's
staying
labeled, we
east of
consider it one.
all the buffer zones for permitting purposes, so. Yeah, I think you've got it. Those two houses, there's no need for it, in our opinions.
Yeah, seems very obvious to me.
Other question?
I do have a.
Any other
Go ahead.
questions?
Yep.
The septic, I know that this type of septic system has been approved in town, in one other place, or is there more than that, do you know? or-
There's one large communal one that I know of.
40B has one.
That's Cooper?
Cooper.
Is that Cooper?
The
Yeah.
40B has one.
Is that
as well.
located within buffer zone and wetland areas? Do we know?
I forget. No.
Yeah, it's illogical to locate it there.
Did you say you
Did
moved
you
it?
pull it?
It's
did
not
you pull
inside
it out?
buffer anymore, right?
No, it's.
Did you pull it out?
The system itself is outside the buffer.
Oh, with the
We're
leach.
flip-flopping it
Oh,
so
with
that
the
the
leach
grading will be
replacement.
out here, there'll be no clearing or anything back here, this will all remain woods.
But
However,
it's
it's
leaching,
leaching,
though,
it's-
right?
it's
It's
not
moving that
large.
way?
Is that-
Okay.
Is that right?
Probably would be,
Yeah.
Okay.
the groundwater direction is probably that way.
Anybody else got any questions?
Yes. Echoing Brian's concerns.
Can you identify yourself, please,
Fairly
quick?
well. My name is Roger Osmond.
Thank you.
And I have a lot right next door to him going up the map, if you will. Depends on which map, of course, because each one uses a different heading. But yes, I'm one lot east of him. And according to that, right at the corner of the septic system for 15 houses. While that's a concern, the vernal pool is especially a concern, as are the species who are native to it. We have, wood frogs like crazy, of course, but also spotted salamanders. It's been confirmed by oxbow, and those frequently end up in our backyard, along with God knows whatever else. Because there's a lot of very lovely habitat out there, not necessarily for humans, but it's a terrific area. And the drainage in that area is not as it's been purported to be. I've seen that myself. Where they say, where it has been said, let's say, better perking soil behind 273, 275. Well, that's, I don't believe, the case. Does not perk better than, in fact, the upland part to the east.
Sorry,
And
could
in
you
fact-
actually come up and point on
Oh,
the
yeah.
map where
Yeah,
you're
that'd
talking?
probably help a little bit.
That would be great.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I believe the claim, and maybe I misheard it, so that's fine, was that this was chosen not only to jam more lots in there, but because the soil here perked better. Well, I know where the perk test was done. They're talking about it right there.
Well, it could be relative to the site, too. So if that was
Well,
better to the site.
Absolutely, but the problem with the test, of course, is it was done at the high point. And while there are spots where there is reasonable drainage, the soil throughout here is notoriously bad. We actually have a swimming pool, believe it or not. And when it was put in, the excavating contractor called me up and said, "We have some bad news. There's nothing but humus here. There's no way we can put a pool under here." I said, "Well, yeah, we've already started. What can you do?" So he suggested, and now I feel a little bit guilty, but only a little bit. They took 300 cubic yards of material out of the backyard and brought in crushed stone for drainage, so that it would work. How that equates to soil that perks better than the upland area, I'm at a loss to explain. I'm not a geologist.
Right, and that's why, as part of, some of this can be out of our expertise, and that's why we do have third-party reviews
Right,
as well.
I understand and appreciate
that's where the planning board will be diligent with that.
And
As
referring
is
back
Board of
again to the vernal pool, which is more or less here, again, we see spotted salamanders fairly regularly. Unfortunately, some of them are committing suicide, which they do, but they're an important species, as are all amphibians, we know full well. And this is great habitat for them. If we have a leaching area here, whether it's step drains or anything else, it doesn't really matter. you are in fact going to be contaminating to a degree the area that's prime habitat for these amphibians, and it's just not responsible.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, one positive part of that, the firm that they had do the wetland delineation, Oxbow Associates.
They're a good outfit.
Are very, that's one thing that they do really well, is amphibians, reptiles. So I think they would be able to maybe help us with some answers to some of your questions regarding that.
Right.
Would be my guess.
Yeah. Now, another concern I have while I'm up here, sorry to make you guys go crazy, but when we're looking at delineation of wetlands and all that other stuff, this year would give you interesting results compared to, I believe it was 2017 when we had the original stuff done, right? Well, that was during an historically dry period, as you all probably remember. This year is quite a bit different. So I would love to see this sort of reflagged, based on current conditions to see what has changed.
However, that is something that when we're out in the field, it's not set in stone per se that we go through, and there are times that flags are moved. So that's more part of our expertise to be able to go out through that. So I'm confident that we can do that.
And then the flags, you can tell you have to have soils, vegetation, and hydrology. And so even though you may not, see water, you can tell that the soils were, or wetlands. Yeah. But flags can change, and we'll
But the
get our
larger
flags.
species of flora there give a pretty good idea of what the traditional or historic behavior is, and it varies quite a bit throughout that area. I'd be happy to talk about trees
Okay.
with someone.
Do you want to set a date?
If they
or
don't
wait
mind
till-
to.
I think you should wait for
It's not
the
tree guy, right?
Well, we need
Oh, okay.
stakes.
Yeah.
Like, our policy is stakes first before we.
So as soon as you
So we
have,
can see the
the
line.
stakes in,
Stakes first, and
what
then
Amy
we
can
go.
do is we can go through and we'll just do a calendar and see what day the majority can go. We'll probably set up 2 dates.
Okay.
But as soon as you have that, and she's due back on Monday. So I know I can't do next week, but I can do almost any time the following week.
So you don't want to set up a date now?
No, we need to wait for Amy.
Okay.
But also we're waiting for the stakes, so it's policy
Yep.
that once stakes
Stakes
are
will
in.
take no time.
Okay, but
Unfortunately, we've had enough instances where stakes are promised and then they don't get to
scheduled
them.
and gone out.
It's
Not a problem.
nothing
Yeah,
personal.
So as soon as they're out, we meet in 2 weeks, if it's your liking, we will continue to the next meeting.
Definitely.
Okay, and then Amy will let you know what time. Okay.
I
Yeah.
encourage you to walk my property while you're there, where the pool is.
Okay.
Well, have at it.
Do we have anyone else who wanted to?
The public's gonna be open to the walk, correct?
No.
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 No?
No, it's private property, so we would have
But
to
you have permission to
get
come.
permission.
Just saying.
So is there any of the walks that are open to the public?
Property owners have often allowed the public to go or abutters to go.
So is that this instance?
You have to ask the property owner?
He doesn't.
That's his applicant, the property owner doesn't.
I don't know that he can't. He would
I
have to.
have
He
to
can't-
ask.
He
Yeah,
can't
he
speak
can't
on that.
speak for the
Okay.
Not my
property.
preference.
So we'll know the next time.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Bruce, would you be bringing Oxbow with you?
Yes.
Okay.
Did you have a question? You looked like you had comments or something. No?
No, I'm just
Okay.
listening very carefully, thank you.
Okay.
I'm not really thrilled about the whole thing.
Okay. Alrighty, so we're gonna keep going. We'll continue to 2 weeks and hopefully get a sidewalk done soon.
Super. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Access to stuff that he's talking about, reports of soil data and whatnot for, he's there arguing about which areas are better, is that stuff that we can look at? I mean, I know Board of Health probably is too. I'm
Yeah,
just
Board of
curious,
Health, we
but-
could ask
Okay.
for Board of Health information.
I'd
I've
like
asked
to
for information before.
open up our 8:30 hearing notice of intent, 9 Air Road.
Yeah, that's right.
U 4330, Mass DEP file number 204-89X, constructing of 2 driveways and 3 houses, utility connections.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Greg Roy with Ducharme and Dillis, and I'm here representing the applicant at 9 Air Road. Also a consultant is Scott Goddard on the project, so he's also with me as well. Bear with me here, I just have the green cards for you. So I know you're running a little late, so I'll try to be as brief as I possibly can here, but I wanted to give you an overview of the site and the proposed project before you this evening. So 9 Air Road is located on the northerly side of Route 2A, just over 5 acres in size. On the southerly side of Air Road is a bordered vegetated wetland. Just to put you in perspective, the site is just to the east of the one property removed, but just east of the
Highway Department.
Highway Department, the light department.
Is Foster Kimball's property, or was?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where is it again?
There's a driveway that goes up, just
Straight
after you
up.
go by the lights.
Correct. Yes,
The
as you're
lights
traveling westbound.
near Pickard?
It's
Near
where-
your street?
No.
Behind New
This is
Street.
where Prudy Ursh.
You know where the lights are at
Nancy's
King
house.
Street,
Yeah.
the car wash?
Yeah,
A little bit beyond that, there's a driveway that goes up a steep.
yeah.
That's Foster Kimball's, or was Foster Kimball's property.
Also, it goes up to where the,
But,
where Kimball's,
New Estate.
yeah, but
where they
this
sleigh
side of
ride, that sleigh ride
Yeah.
road
Back side
development.
of that, yes. These properties up here are on the back side of Sleigh Ride.
Okay, I gotcha.
Yes, that's correct. As I said, there's as you probably can visualize, a significant wetland system on the south side of Air Road, which I've highlighted in green. It's right at the toe of the road embankment. So we have, we did do some, put some wetland flags in the field, but it is indeed like right at the toe of the slope. Not a very complicated one to delineate. It's very, it's clearly has all 3 indicators. The associated buffer zone is shown here in red, in the dashed red line here. A little bit more than 50 feet onto the site from the road. The 50-foot no-touch buffer impacts the property. The closest point is about, we're about 46 feet or so at the point where it comes closest. So we're 46 feet from the wetland, and then it sort of almost parallels the road, but there is a section of the 50-foot no disturb on the property, which I'll get to in a minute. There's also a perennial stream located in the middle of the wetland system, which we have identified. It's sort of off the page here, but the inner 100 and the outer riverfront area are shown in blue. There's approximately 3,400 square feet that impacts onto the property, onto the subject side of riverfront area. So the proposal for the property is to subdivide. Actually, it has been subdivided. The planning board endorsed a 3-lot A&R plan. So there would be 3 lots, two frontage lots created. Actually, 3 frontage lots created, and the 3rd lot would be a larger lot area in the back.
Where's the existing house?
The existing house is right here,
Okay.
and then there's a barn that's right there. So those are the 2 existing
So are you using
structures.
the existing driveway?
We are not. So the existing driveway is a shared driveway, as you referenced. With this house, comes off on a slant from just past the light and then comes onto the property. We're proposing to do 2, because we have 3 new houses proposed. We can only have 2 on one shared driveway. We need to do new access from Air Road. So we are proposing 2 new driveways. This one would be a shared driveway with these 2 lots, and this driveway would access the lot in the back. So there's a significant slope associated with this, as I'm sure you're aware. So we have worked out the grading. We're trying to work the balance between wanting to come up as steep as possible so that we can, sort of try to minimize earthwork here, but also needing to have a safe configuration on the driveway. So we've designed it in that manner. We have.
What percent?
Yeah, what grade
So
is
this
that?
percent is, I think, 8%. This one is 10% on this side.
There's a difference of 50 feet between the top of the hill there and the road?
It's
Pretty
about
near?
35. Yeah, it's about 35 or 40, yes. It's about 266 nominally, or 222, yeah, so about 40 feet.
What's the maximum on a private? I know it's different than public road in terms of grades.
I believe it's 10%.
10 on private?
Yes, yeah. So we've tried to, it might even be more than that, but we've tried not to go. We also have a state highway here. So
Yeah, your
we've done
residents are gonna slide out into the road.
Well, we've designed it
That's the planning board purview, but.
And it's also Mass DOT, which there's an application pending with them. We have filed with Mass DOT for an access permit. So we're still waiting to hear from them as well. But from a location standpoint, as I said, these two are frontage lots, so they're 150 feet of frontage. Same thing with this one, but there's slightly more than 150 feet here. We did that so that we could get this driveway as far outside of the riverfront area as possible, trying to keep that as undisturbed as possible. There's a small amount of that driveway, I think it's in the 20 square feet range, that we're disturbing in the riverfront area for that curb cut access.
No way to keep that out with riverfront?
No, because we've, like I said, we need to keep, this is a shared driveway with these two lots. This one is wholly for this lot, so we've pushed that up against that property line as much as we can. We're actually encroaching a little bit. We've tried to
Not
hug
without
that
losing a house,
radius
basically.
right in there. So we do have 20 feet of, it's about 20 square feet of riverfront alteration with that current configuration.
Did you, I know you've already subdivided, it looks like, but.
We have.
Did you ever, look at coming in from here and having one house here and one house there? Just having two houses on, and having this one
Using
lot.
the
and
existing
that's the-
driveway
yeah.
seems the only practical way.
Right.
And that
Well,
garden's
have to
really
do
pretty
all
too.
that.
You guys taking that garden out? Really like.
Which one?
The one as you look up the hill.
Oh, as you go up, yeah.
Yeah, anyways, sorry.
Well, we've looked at that, when we looked at the grading associated with the whole site, we felt that this was certainly the preferred alternative. And given that I understand we have a small amount of riverfront alteration, but by and large here, we're talking about just a buffer zone project. Other than the 20 square feet of riverfront alteration, we don't have any resource area, filling or anything like that.
You're creating permanent drainage straight down the hill versus the angle that previously
Right.
existed.
Which we certainly need to
that's
mitigate,
not.
which we certainly need to
im-
mitigate with
yeah.
swales, which we do have swale.
So you're going to capture all the runoff from the
Yeah.
driveways?
Right.
So it doesn't, because
You are?
the road
swales,
is
yeah.
eroding on the wetlands, not that that's not your problem, obviously, but the road on the other
Exactly.
side's eroding from
Well,
the
it's gonna
wetland side.
undercut
It
the
really,
road.
yeah, no, it is. I just can't see that taking any more,
Because
and it's a
the
danger
thing is
to the residents to have, ice, and so there's gonna be a ridiculous amount of salt and sand and.
Right. And I expect that to be, I expect that to be in the purview of the Mass DOT.
Well,
I've
but the
actually
resource
had-
area is across the street, so we're talking about the buffer zone and the concern about
Right.
just more load,
Yep.
sheeting more load with no opportunity
Are the
for
drains
stopping.
on Air Road?
Yeah,
which
like you
side-
put better
which
drains in or
side
something.
Are there drains on Air Road?
There's we got a pen here, sorry.
There's one singular catch basin down just off of over here.
Right,
So
it's off the page a little
So
bit.
which way
this
do you
all
think it's
pitches
gonna
the-
go? So it's gonna go that
This
way?
pitches
Yeah.
this way, catch basin right in here.
There's also one right
Discharges
here.
across the way over here.
So which way, is it splitting in terms of the flow, or is it all going that way? I thought it would have come.
It's pretty flat. So I think it's probably a break point. There's probably some of it that'll go this way and some of it that'll go that way. Even the shots we had, it's a pretty flat.
I'm going to stop you. Because I think if this connects to the fields and the high school, the town should be looking at this piece of property. I mean it, because it's up on top.
Oh, it doesn't.
It's separated by sleigh ride.
Yeah, you can't.
It is separated
Yeah,
from
you
it.
can't
So there's a
separate it.
piece, the high school is on the other side of this.
Yeah, but it's pretty close to it.
The high school didn't
No,
look
the
at-
high school, so.
Jim, the
You
high
got
school,
the
high
septic
school
system
didn't
up
look at the
there.
Kimball
Sleigh rides
piece, and that would've
here,
been
there's
much
more
better.
lots, and then there's the
Well,
high
it's all
school.
part of the same parcel.
I know.
No, but it's
No.
already,
It's all,
already
it's
been
all,
gone.
it's a done deal, man.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah, in hindsight.
And
they
it's,
they lost the best part when they lost that.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Nonetheless.
Go ahead.
It's good thought.
So I understand you, we can certainly look to, at your comment about the road runoff, which I do expect to, I've gotten some preliminary feedback from Mass DOT already regarding that, so I expect them to have, to be working with them a little bit on that. I mean, the one thing we have going for us, it's a sandy site, so that the soil doesn't produce a lot of it gets infiltrated.
And you've done testing where the proposed roads are?
We have done borings on the site. It is,
And that's data
It's all
that you
sand and
provided?
gravel.
we might not have provided it in your application.
So that would be
If
something
you'd like
that we
it, we
would
can
want,
certainly
yeah.
provide it, yeah. We did do soil borings on the property just to make sure that we, what the soil conditions were like.
New State Roads in Esker, so it's.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty, so we can certainly look to give you some additional information on that. I mean, I understand that concern, certainly. But we are proposing to manage that through the use of swales. And because of the soils that we have on the site, we believe that we will infiltrate, we'll have the runoff will be infiltrated on the site, not creating the conditions that that you're concerned about. But we can certainly provide you some more
Do you have springs?
documentation. Say it again.
Have you observed springs, like in cuts where the slope gradient?
No,
changes?
the sand, the material is such that it's a level water table there, so it's pretty much the elevation of the wetland system is where the water table is.
Because I know there's, I think it might be on that side, kind of a stream and relic stream that goes down, and the highway department used some of that area on a property off a New Estate Road up gradient of this. And then I know something goes down at 5, I think actually off of this property, there's kind of a stream that heads down this way.
On this this is the commercial building.
Drainage is probably more accurate. It's not really stream, it's more of a drainage.
Yeah, I got you. This is the.
Yep, the industrial.
Yeah, the
Strip mall.
Yeah, there's several businesses in there, right?
Right, next to the highway department.
Next to the highway department, and there's a low, where they, I mean, this was when they, there's a low point that they have a drainage basin in the back, and there's the groundwater there is about coincident with the wetland system across the street, so it sort of establishes that that water table there.
All right. I'm not sure if you were here for some of the prior hearings that we had in terms of concerns with any type of grade like that, was where the snow storage is going to go, kind of coming down that hill. If you've made thoughts about that, of where that might go in terms of turnoffs, or how that could be treated as well.
Yeah, I mean, we left these shoulders pretty wide, partially because of that. So we have a 12-foot paved surface, but then we have a, we have a 24-foot cross-section here. So there's a 6-foot gravel shoulder that we have on each side.
So 24 feet from total side to side, not in terms of pavement.
Correct.
How wide's it?
So 24 feet, then we have the swales after that. So we did that partially for.
Okay. But you may want to look at a dedicated area, so that way it can be treated, it can be designed to help hold that snow there as well.
The sand and salt.
It's going to have to get treated before it goes down.
Okay.
Yeah, I think because you are doing work within the 50.
Yeah, we
also,
have.
you're going to be having a waiver.
We do need a waiver, correct.
Which means you need some sort of alternatives analysis in a public interest. aspect.
Have you looked at our waivers?
Yeah, we did fill that out for you, the waiver request form. It didn't come with the initial application, but we did send it along to you afterwards.
And can you describe
Before
what
Amy
your-
left, she gave us some comments on that, so we got it.
Okay, can you describe what you said in the waiver? Like, why,
Well-
what are you offering with the waiver?
Well, generally speaking, we're just looking to minimize the impacts. I mean, we don't, the 50-foot is shown, I tried to highlight it in red, but the gray is the edge of the pavement, and the red is the 50-foot buffer. And as you can see, it completely, there's no spot along our frontage where we could gain access without impacting the 50-foot buffer area. So our intention here was to minimize the spots.
Could you have done that prior to creating the 2 lots? You could have used the common drive. So granted, you've already cut it off, but hindsight was you knew of the waiver prior to that.
We can only do 2 lots on a common driveway.
Yeah, but could you have just made 2 lots then?
Well, but the project before you was 3 lots. So, yes,
Okay.
you
Or
could,
just-
you could just keep it as it was today, but that wouldn't be
Okay.
that's not the project
We'll
that's before you.
we'll review the waiver.
Right.
Just because you cut it off doesn't necessarily mean that.
Doesn't
that's-
mean it can't be redrawn.
Right. So-
Well, we could redraw, what I'm trying to say is, to gain access to the frontage anywhere on this front, there's nowhere I can go because of the way the geometry, there would be impacts to the 50-foot regardless of where you go in on the frontage, because the 50-foot comes on, past the pavement, all across the entire frontage.
Well, we actually, we'll look at your waiver, that's good you
Yeah,
looked at that,
you
but
have-
we don't want just a minimization of impacts, we want an improvement over existing conditions, or, environmental improvement. So that's what we'd be looking for.
What's staked now, anything?
We do not have anything staked. So if you were inclined to do a site walk, we certainly could accommodate that for
We'll
you.
definitely do a sidewalk, but as you probably heard, we won't make a scheduled date until just let us know when the stakes are there.
Are there invasives on the property?
Not very much, it's a pretty.
Bittersweet, maybe, I think I've seen,
A
but that's
li-
everywhere.
A little bit, yeah, but it's not like it's overrun with it, though.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I haven't noticed knotweed.
Where's the little house that's down by the road? Right in here?
No, it's over to it's like right over there, like down a little bit further. Right on the edge of it's like right there.
So
I
you
think
didn't
that was
get,
the- that
you
was the
didn't get
one
Foster's
over the well.
driveway then?
What's that?
You didn't get Foster's
We had to
driveway?
go across someone else's property to get to that property.
We had a right of way over
Someone else's
the
property.
existing.
Okay,
which
but
leads to-
was there a house up to
Yes,
the?
there's an additional house up on that. right
That
there.
you,
That one right there.
okay.
Yeah, I think is that the one that has the driveway coming in at a
Yes.
slant and the
So then
garden
we
like right
cross-
here?
It's currently a shared driveway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure I'm oriented
So
to the
to get to that
correct house.
property, you have to go across someone else's property.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay. Any questions that end?
This sounds good.
That's good. So I wasn't looking at you much.
At least for the presentation part, right?
For the presentation
Is that what you
part.
meant?
Yes, that's what I meant. Sorry.
Just want to clarify.
A little clarification, that's good.
Why, you don't like the project?
I didn't say that. I said, I'm just trying to clarify this statement, that's all.
Okay.
It's
So-
my first time looking at it.
Right. If you can just let Amy know when you have that done,
Sure, yep.
we'll go out.
And you said
We meet
snow.
again, we
I
meet
just-
again in 2 weeks.
Can I just go through the list that I think I'm sure I missed something that you said here?
You can
Because I
always
had
listen to
three.
the video.
All right, that's true, fair enough. But I had,
Okay.
you said snow storage, alternatives analysis relative to the, I guess some more additional
Benefit.
information regarding benefit
Environmental
alternatives.
benefit, yeah.
The catch basins,
And sort of drainage related issues.
pre-treatment, making it better.
Soil conditions.
They're all together.
Oh, there.
Yeah, Okay, yeah, I mean, we can stake this quickly. Amy's back on Monday, you said?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we'll carry you on for the next meeting. in 2
That'd be
weeks.
great. We appreciate that.
Wonderful. Okay.
23rd, okay.
Can we request an earlier time?
I'll talk to Amy.
I think you can.
Yeah, we don't,
Yeah.
set- but usually the people that have already.
We need to pick, we need to
have a lot of continuations.
This is early for
Yeah,
us.
so.
I'm
and
paying a
there's-
sitter
There's
tonight.
actually,
This is early.
it might
It
even be
looks so
longer
good.
because there's
Came in
others
too.
that are on the next one.
You can always ask.
Well, yeah, not as long, but it's not as long as yours, so we
Thank you.
understand.
Okay.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Yep.
appreciate it.
We'll put you on 11:30.
Put the select
Well,
down.
don't laugh.
No.
We've had some meetings like that.
The,
Start going into Boston and
Have we-
the 8:45 is going to be continued to next time.
It's just such a larger.
So I would like to make a motion that we close at 9:35.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.